All right, there we go. Trevor Peek, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Man, it's really great to talk to you. You know, like I was saying before we got rolling, you know, I'm a Tennessee guy, so you know, anytime I see someone in the octagon that's from Tennessee or fighting out of Tennessee, I become their biggest fan and root for them. And it's actually a pretty exciting start to my weekend because not only do I get to talk to you, which is awesome, I'm actually going to the fights this weekend. I live in San Antonio now, and they're back here in San Antonio. Man, I've been a fan of the sport for over 10 years, and this is the first UFC event I've been able to attend live. So, I've been real excited to talk to you, and then the fights this weekend. So just thanks for coming on the show and really kicking my weekend off with a bang.
Yes, sir. So you've never been to a fight before?
No, man. I've never really had the opportunity to go. I grew up in a small town, and I've pretty much lived in a small town most of my life. So I've just never really had the opportunity or the money or whatever it was to go. But everything just kind of lined up this time, man. And it's I cannot wait. I'm just beyond excited for it, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man. I've been to two events. I went to Nashville in 2018 and watched Wonder Boy get knocked out by Pettis, and then we went to Atlanta that same year, and we got to watch in the co-main it was Poirier versus Holloway, and then the main event was Gastelum versus Adesanya. So I mean, yeah.
Dang,
That was the fight of the year in 2018. So, and I believe the co-main was the runner. I believe the Holloway and Poirier fight, I believe it was the runner-up. So, I mean, we got to see two of the best fights that year in one card, man. It's crazy. The crowd is just, they're brutal, man. But that energy in that place it's unreal. I can't wait till I get to experience it myself down in the octagon. But it's cool, man. You'll love it.
Oh yeah, no, I could not be more excited, and I have to imagine that was something you were kind of missing from your UFC debut because it was in the Apex, right? So there was no crowd, no anything like that. And you do seem like a guy that would thrive off of a crowd just going crazy, with the way you fight.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I definitely feed off the energy. I love the crowd, man. It's the best. It's the coolest part about. One of the coolest parts about all of it. But having the experience on the with the Contender Series at the Apex back in September, I was a little bit better prepared for it going into this previous fight because I for most of my career, man, I mean, I've pretty well had support, and I've had a fan base follow me about every fight I've ever fought, and whenever I went to the Contender Series fight, it kind of threw me for a loop, but I was like I said, I was a lot better prepared for it this go around.
Oh yeah, I bet. Well, how's life been treating you after you won your UFC debut, man? I know it's got to feel like a dream come true. How you been living since then?
Just busy. I mean, I'm all over the place, man. I've got so much going on. I mean, I've started back working, doing a little bit of construction work on the side, and got so many speeches and stuff I get to go give. I don't want to say it like that. It's a blessing, and I'm honored to do it. But I'm covered up, man. I told Steve earlier. I said I've got way too much stuff scheduled, man. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I wish I'm not financially able to, man, but I really need an assistant very bad.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine, man. During that, your UFC debut, man, I mean, you had a great fight with Eric Gonzalez, man. You two just duked it out, and it was a super exciting fight. I mean, like I said, when I saw you were fighting out of Tennessee, I already knew I was going to become a fan of yours. But after I saw the fight, I was like, I'm definitely going to become a big fan of this guy. I mean, you were just hitting him with some crazy shots, man. You got some serious power in those hands, and those leg kicks you were throwing were nasty, man. I mean, where does that kind of power come from, man? Is it the training you've been doing these years, or is it more so from like your lifetime of fighting that you've had?
I would, man, honestly, I'd say that God blessed me with power, and just unreal power, really. I mean, long before I ever hit a bag or anything like that, I mean, I could lay a lick, man. I mean, I had a very nasty right hand, and I've just progressively gotten more powerful, and as the years have gone on. So the training and stuff is definitely, with the technique and everything's definitely helped, increase my power. Jeff's got my body mechanics down and everything, and I feel like I know how to use my body pretty well. But yeah, I knew how to hit hard from the beginning, man.
Oh yeah, and yeah, you got power in those hands, man. Those leg kicks were nasty, and I was watching some of your previous fights too, and we didn't get to see too much of it during your debut, but it looks like you've got some pretty you've developed some pretty good grappling too. Like Gonzalez was able to get you to the ground a couple of times, but you for the most part you were right back up to your feet, and you had the Kimura attempt there, and I watched you fight with Karma Worthy, and you landed some explosive takedowns during that fight. So in your debut, was there ever any time there with Gonzalez, you thought you might be in a little trouble with the grappling, or have you become just as confident in your grappling as you are with the striking?
No, I never for once, no, not one time in there was I ever worried. I mean, I watched his videos and everything, and I knew he allowed quite a bit of space between his body and his opponent's body. Whenever they're on the ground, he just didn't really do a good job of controlling. Watching his previous fights, and then after we got in there, I mean, he had good leverage, with the body lock, and was able to get my feet off the ground and get the takedown, but. He just didn't feel all that strong, man. It was more leverage than anything on the takedowns. But once we got down to the ground, I felt super comfortable. I mean, Matt Harris and Sterling Peace and Mike Griffin and everybody up here, the Gogi combatives. I mean, man, we kill each other here on the mats every day. So I mean, I've got a lot of stuff I need to work on, but I'm pretty comfortable as far as surviving and trying to stay out of danger.
Oh yeah, and like you said, man, you did look real comfortable, in there in that octagon, man. I was curious, was there anything that y'all focused on or did differently for your UFC debut, versus some of the previous pro fights you had? Was there anything different about the training y'all did?
No, sir. No, I wouldn't say so. Initially I was getting ready to fight a completely different opponent, and then, that fight fell off 2 weeks out. So we was doing a little bit of different things for the other guy. We, was doing a little bit more, wrestling practices and stuff. And then, when the opponent switch came, it was pretty much just pressure forward, heavy pressure, and just be violent. I mean, I knew I could get the job done the way I did, as long as I went in there and was me. I wasn't really myself whenever I got to the Contender Series and did that fight, at least for the first round anyways. But I just felt a lot more like myself, and feel like I executed the game plan. A little wild. Well, not a little wild. I guess I was really wild, but it's just part of it, man. A lot of times they say whenever you get to the UFC, it's almost like starting your career over as far as the nerves and all that goes. But I've got some things to work on. I know there's holes in my game, but at the end of the day, man, I know how to win. And I think knowing how to win knowing how to win can take you a long ways.
Oh, it definitely can. So those, because people, like you said, people do talk about it. Those UFC jitters are a real thing. A lot of people, they might lose their UFC debut and then, put on a real impressive win streak, but you didn't really seem to feel too many of those jitters in there. It was just, like sticking to what the game plan, everything like that.
Yeah, well, I started to get jitters a little bit in the back right before we went out. I started to get a little bit nervous, but I stopped myself and was like, I had a long conversation with myself, in my head and everything, and basically just told myself, to, man, just have fun, like I just for last several fights, man, I've been so worried about winning that I've not really had it fun in the fight, and I love fighting, man. I genuinely I have fun fighting, and with the pressure of the undefeated record on the verge of being in the UFC, and getting to the UFC and all this, just the last several 3 or 4 fights have just been a lot of pressure on me, just wanting to win, and hadn't had hardly any fun as far as the actual fight goes. I mean, I've had fun. I wouldn't say I haven't had any fun, but just what I mean. But this last time before I went out there, I was like, dude, just have fun, and it helped my nerves out a lot, man. I had a blast.
All right, well, something else that had to be pretty fun was getting that $50K performance bonus, man. How did that feel? I know that had to be just icing on top of the cake there.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, money don't go far nowadays, but it definitely helped. He'll get me to the next fight for sure. But yeah, I kind of thought I might get it, man. But it's one of them things you never really know till you get in there and get it done. But I had a feeling I could get a bonus, man. I mean, since I started actually training, before I got in the cage, I mean, I've come out of the cage pretty much every time with either a knockout of the night or fight of the night, or sometimes winning both awards in the same night. And I mean, I've won a bunch of performance, on the regional scene, so I knew I could get it done in the UFC too once I got there.
Shoot, with the way you fight, that's not hard to believe, man. I definitely believe it. You are, I mean, you're just an exciting guy to watch, man. I feel like a lot of fans just really like that style, man, just going out there and just duking it out. And that's definitely what y'all did in that debut. You got that knockout in like the last second of the fight. In the moment there, were you thinking like, oh, the round's ending, I got to close this out, or was that just not even a thought at that moment in time?
No, I mean, no. I heard the clapper. I knew I had 10 seconds left, and then right there when I landed that last ride on the feet, I mean, I knew when that one hit, I knew he was gonna be out on that shot, and then he went down and he was out, but I was between the ref and him, so the ref couldn't really see him all that good, and I knew if I could land as many licks as I could in that last few seconds, that maybe the ref would hopefully pull me off of him, and that's what happened. But I knew I was right there at the end of it.
Hell, there were a couple of moments in that fight where it looked like it might get stopped before then, but yeah, during those last 10 seconds or so, man, you really laid it on him and got the job done, man. It was such a cool win to see. And something else that was really cool to see, I think, after the fight was kind of your interaction that you had with Bruce Buffer. Of course, y'all bumped fists before the fight, but then afterwards, he comes up to you and talks to you some. I mean, how cool was it, to go out there and have Bruce Buffer do your introduction? You get to meet him, after the show. I mean, that had to have been just a real cool thing to experience.
Oh man, I mean, it's up there at the top of my dreams. I mean, it really is. My cousin and my buddy was watching the fights, and they didn't know Bruce, but they was watching them at his house, and they seen Bruce Buffer, and they was like, "Oh my God, Trevor's gonna lose his mind," and then I did. I mean, it was wild, man. I'm glad it happened the way it did. I didn't really. Well, they had a TV in the back for us to watch the fights, but the volume was so low you couldn't hear anything, and I didn't catch any of the announcements, so I didn't know Mr. Buffer was even in the building, man. So it just totally took me by surprise, and it was one of them like, oh my God, I'm really here, man. You know what I mean? Like it was wild. It's hard. It really and truly is hard to describe the feeling and just the surrealness of it, man. But it most definitely was just surreal and just a beautiful moment for me.
Yeah, as soon as I locked down my tickets for the event this weekend, I went to look up and see who the announcers were, who was going to do all the in-ring stuff, and Bruce Buffer is going to be doing the in-ring announcing. So I'm super excited to see him do his thing live. I don't imagine I'll get to meet him or anything like you did, but like, being able to be there in the crowd and watch him announce the fighters, I've seen him do it on TV for years and years and years, but I bet in person it's just going to be just a different kind of awesome.
Oh, it is, man. When you hear that it's time and them lights and that place goes crazy and that crowd roars, it is that the TV really doesn't do it any justice, man. Between the crowd and the lights and all the production and everything, man, that when you watch it on TV, it does no justice for how the live events really are, man. They are truly special.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, fans love him. Like it makes sense that people, in the crowd really pop for him. I mean, he's been such an integral part of the sport for just years and years and years at this point. I mean, you have a lot of people that, they're a fan of the fight game. Maybe they have some favorite fighters, but like everybody loves Bruce Buffer. Everybody, no matter what fighters you root for or against, or how long you've been watching, man. I mean, how could you not love somebody like Bruce Buffer, man?
Oh, yeah, man. He's a super, super likable guy, man. He seems real genuine, too, He just, I don't know, he seems real genuine. I like Mr. Buffer a lot, man. He seems like a cool dude.
Oh, yeah. And I know he gave you the announcer's card, after the show there, and I know he doesn't do that for too many people. Have you got that card framed somewhere, or you got it somewhere sticking out so you can look at it or something?
Man, it's literally about a foot away from me right now, framed up. I'm looking at it right now. I got a canvas done of me and Bruce too, and I got it in front of that canvas, man. It's cool. It's super nice, man. I reckon I'm the only fighter he's ever personally give one to. That he's only ever given one other card out in history. And at the end of our podcast, I went back and was watching it, and I seen where he had, made the comment that the only other time he ever give one out, whichever fighter it was, their corner had asked for it, and he give it to their corner. So really and truly, I'm the only fighter he's ever personally give one to. So man, this thing means as much. I mean, it's like a world title to me, man. People win world titles every day, and Bruce Buffer's, I'd like to know the number of events he's announced, man. I think he's been doing it for 27 years, so, I mean, I ain't no telling how many events or how many fights he's announced, so it's super special to me, man. I'll hold on to this thing forever.
Oh, yeah, you definitely have to. Did he tell you, either, after you got done fighting or when you did the podcast with him, I saw that it was a great conversation with you too, but did he ever mention specifically like what it was that stuck out in his mind that he was like, oh yeah, I've got to give this guy my card? Like what was it specifically that made that impression on him, I wonder?
He never said anything to me, man. He kind of pulled one of my coaches to the side, before he gave me the card, and said that he was going to do something special for me, something that he don't ever do. And he was talking to my coach and said that said he saw something special in my eyes that he ain't really seen much before. So I guess just the pureness of the moment, I guess, is what got him. I don't really know, man. It was just, at the top of my list of dreams, and I think he felt that that I was, as thankful to be there as anybody that's ever stepped in that octagon, and I am, man. This is my path to, hopefully creating a successful life for myself and maybe changing lives along the way. So I'm just super blessed where I'm at, and it's just real cool, man.
Yeah, well, I think anybody that listen to your post-fight interview or any of the, like the press conference stuff or any of the podcasts that you've done since then, I think anybody who listens to those can tell, how grateful you are for that opportunity, for that experience. It very much comes through in the way you talk about that opportunity and your journey to the UFC, which is, something I kind of want to get into a little bit. I know you're from a small town there in Alabama. Is Pisgah, right? Pisgah, Alabama.
Yes, sir, Pisgah. Yeah, it's a little bitty tiny town, man. Probably like, I don't even know the population. I'd say probably around 1,000. I don't even think it's that, honestly. It's very tiny. We've got a Dollar General, and then they just built a Dollar Tree with that's all we got there. So real small, man. Real small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everything, Oh,
yeah. See, I grew up in a pretty small town in in Tennessee too. But we at least had a Walmart. We did have a Walmart, so it wasn't quite that small. What was it like growing up in a small town in Alabama for you?
I mean, I loved it. I love the country. I love the small town. Somebody asked me yesterday how I liked it and everything, and what it done for me. And I feel like growing up in a small town gave me a lot of manners. A lot of little Southern hospitality and stuff like that. I wouldn't have wanted to grow up in a city. If I would have, and I'd probably be saying the same thing about the country, obviously. But I'm thankful for where I grew up and the people that I've been blessed with throughout the years. It's been a journey, man. But yeah, there just wasn't anything to do back home, really. That's kind of how I ended up straying off into getting in all the trouble I did. Eventually, addiction caught up with me and everything, and really got off on a bad road, man.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's real easy to do in a place like that where you kind of just don't really, you don't have too much going on, so it's real easy to get into some stuff that you shouldn't be getting into. But yeah, I think you're right. I live in San Antonio now. I live in the big city now, but I feel kind of like you do, man. Like I wouldn't. I wouldn't trade the way I grew up for nothing. It's like maybe I, we didn't live in a big house, or, we didn't have all this stuff going on, or, maybe you miss out on some opportunities just not being around as many things. But there really is something about, growing up in that country way of living that, just kind of, it makes you a different kind of person, I think. And, you talk to people that are from smaller towns out in the country and everything like that. I feel like a lot of them will say the same thing, whether they still live there or they've moved off. It's, a lot of them are real grateful to have grown up the way that they live. And, I think you're right. A lot of people probably look at towns like that, towns like yours and mine, and, they would never want to live there, man. But, it's kind of something you got to experience just to realize how great it was and how important it was for, becoming who you are now, I think.
Yes, sir. Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. Do you still live there, or do you live in Chattanooga now where you train?
I live in Chattanooga. I actually live at the gym that I train at over at Gogi Combatives. They had an office space upstairs, big old nice facility, and they wasn't really doing a whole lot with the upstairs office. So I moved up here for the Kama Worthy fight about a month and a half out, somewhere around that time, and I've been here, ever since then. And it's been, man, it's such a blessing. I couldn't do anything without Matt and Sterling and all them, man. They really take care of me.
Hey, well, it makes for a quick trip to the office, You don't have to do any long commute or nothing like that. It's just right there.
Yeah, man, I literally can be on the mats in about, I can get up out of bed in the morning, I'll be on the mats in about a minute, so it's super cool, man. It makes this training and this fight game a lot easier for me, for sure.
Oh, I bet, man.
But I've been up in the Chattanooga. Chattanooga, it's been my second home my entire life, though, man. I've lived up here, before now, and my grandmother and my mom lives up here. So I've been around Chattanooga for a very long time. So it's all come together, man. Super thankful for everything I got going on.
Oh yeah, that's good, man. So it wasn't, like whenever you did, make that move to Chattanooga, it wasn't like you were moving off somewhere crazy that you weren't familiar with. There was no, you were already pretty much acclimated to Chattanooga. There was probably no adjustment process for you to go through then.
No, not at all, man. Like I said, I've lived up here and worked up here, and like I said, my grandmother's lived up here my entire life, and I've stayed with her a lot and stuff. So it's really just it's my second home, man. So there was no adjusting whatsoever.
Man, it's such a great place too. I haven't been in quite some time, but I really love Chattanooga. And it's not quite as big as like a Nashville or Memphis or anything like that. But that's what I like about it. It's got there's way more to it than like where I'm from, but it's not quite as hectic or as crazy as somewhere like Nashville or Memphis is.
Yeah, Nashville's too much, man. I went down there and walked around Broadway after I fought Conor Worthy, and that's just too many people for me, man. I went back to the room.
I'm actually moving to Nashville here in a few months, but I've been living in San Antonio for a little bit, so I'm kind of at this point I'm kind of used to just all the people and the big city life and everything. But yeah, it's definitely a different kind of living than a place like where we're from. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what kind of different jobs did you have before you got into MMA? I'm always real curious to know what kind of what kind of background people have before they get to the UFC or get to doing what they're doing now. What kind of different jobs did you have?
Man, I've done a little bit of about everything. I went to college for a little bit for welding, so I mean I know how to weld decently. Worked in factories and stuff like that. I'd say the main thing I've done more than anything would be construction work. I mean, I've swung a hammer a million times, it seems like, man.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I did, during college and everything like that, I worked in a factory, just, get by, pay tuition, all that kind of stuff. It's, it's kind of what everyone does in a small town, whether you're going into a trade or, that is really what it feels like. You either go into a trade or you go to a factory or you do some kind of manual labor,
Yes, sir. Yeah. It's definitely that way, man. You got to.
Yeah. Now I know you grew up getting into, a fair amount of street fights, but how early did you start doing, like amateur fights? And I know it was a fair bit before you started really training in MMA, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was. The first time I ever stepped in the octagon, I was 15 years old. Zero training. I mean, zero anything really, man. I'd only been in like one or two street fights at that point, so I didn't even really know how good I really was. My buddy called me that day, asked me if I wanted to go fight, and I thought we was going to a parking lot, and I ended up getting a piece of paper signed by my dad, and we went up there and I beat the kid up real bad, and then I won another one that was unsanctioned, and then I went and won a sanctioned event in 35 seconds, and so I won 3 without ever training, man, and then I rematched the guy that I had beaten 35 seconds, and during that time, the way the rules was, or it's still like that in Alabama, like I couldn't ground and pound to the face. And so that kind of, I had 2 weapons, man. I had a nasty right hand and on the feet, and a nasty right hand if I got you on the ground. So they pretty well had me pegged on my game plan, and when I couldn't punch him on the ground, man, like he ended up getting me out of there rear naked in the 3rd round. But after that fight, I was like, man, because I was completely gassed, about halfway through the 1st round, and I was like, man, I'm never getting in here again without training. My luck's ran out. So I went on. I was 19 then, and I didn't start really training until I was 22 years old. After I got in some bad trouble, I decided it was time to get my life together. So I really put the footwork on the ground, and started getting after it, man, and it's been a heck of a journey since then, man. It's just crazy, really. I can't believe how far I've made it in this time, and where I'm at, it blows my mind, man.
Yeah, well, it is really awesome to see. What's that conversation like when your dad, when you're 15 and you bring him the sheet, the bout agreement or whatever they had? What's that conversation like? What do you tell your dad when you want to, you're 15 and you want to go out fighting? What's that like?
Well, I kind of caught him when he was in the middle of something, really, man. Like I don't think he really knew much about what he was signing. He's just so busy and everything. And I asked him if I could go fight, and I don't guess he knew what I I don't know if he thought I meant like go up there and wrestle or what the deal was, but like after he signed that paper and I went up there and fought and everything, I had just a short clip of the fight and I showed it to him, and he got so mad at me for not telling him exactly what was going on. Not because I fought, just because I fought and he wasn't there. You know what? I think he was upset that he didn't pay more attention to what I had going on. But yeah, man, it was cool. I mean, I felt like a real cool kid when I went back to school, man. I was 15 years old, you know, at school, and I remember one teacher, I was talking to her, and I was like, I can't really write today. My hands kind of hurt. I thought, you know, I was just, I don't know, man. It was neat, but yeah, cool experience.
You had to be showing that video to everybody, I imagine, you know?
Oh, yeah, man. It was, man, I did really well. I mean, I really did. The kid tried to throw a triangle choke up on me in the second round, and I, like, stood up with him and slammed him like Rampage Jackson did over in Pride.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, like, it was just and they all trained, man. Everybody I fought, you know, everybody I've ever fought in the cage was, you know, had a lot of experience in training. So, I mean, and that, you know, and all that led to, you know, even more street fights and stuff for me, because I mean, it just really got even more cocky, you know, going and beating trained people, and I had never trained a lick, so kind of, I don't know, it was wild, man.
Oh yeah, no, that had to have been crazy. Also, you said you caught your dad while he was doing something, and you got him to sign it. That's the best time to get your parents to sign something you don't want them to read. You know, I remember report cards and homework, you know, stuff you just really don't want them to see. Catch them in the middle of something. They'll just scan it over. They won't really read it. You know, that's the best technique right there. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they'll read between the lines and see what you're not wanting them to see. But that's a good move there. It's a good tactic.
Yeah, it worked out for me, man. Which I don't think, you know, I think he'd have just went with me, you know. But yeah, I kind of feel bad that he didn't get to go. And I went by myself. Me and two of my buddies, we all went up there and weighed in, and you know, they matched us at the venue. So it was I don't know, man. It was a wild bunch of hillbillies up there throwing down.
Yeah, that does sound about right. Do you have any of your family friends go watch you for this UFC debut? Did they get to catch you up there?
Yeah, I had, with the tickets being, tickets was almost $1,700 for floor seats and $2,000 for skybox. So I had probably about, I don't know, somewhere around 12 people out there, I want to say, you know. So I was, I was really blessed to have people come out and support me, man. It was, it added to the experience for sure. I got to, you know, when I walked out, all my teammates and family and friends, you know, they were standing there at the gates, and it made it feel more like the regional scene for me. So yeah, I was super thankful to have all them guys there and everything there. We got a great team, man, really great team. It's all a family here at Agoge, and just can't be more grateful for being here, you know.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
We actually got to stay at the season 29 Ultimate Fighter House. I stayed at the hotel for the first part of the week, but one of the gym owners, they all came up and rented that house, and I got to go over there and got to stay in one of the master rooms. Man, it was neat. It was real neat.
Nice. Man. Yeah, that is awesome, man. When you know, you've talked a little bit about your journey, you know, to becoming a pro. I mean, when was it something that, you know, you really thought you could make a career? You know, it's one thing to win a couple of fights, but then I imagine it's another thing to think, okay, like I can, you know, I can take this further. Like I can make this a career. I can make this something that I do for a living. When did that happen for you?
I mean, I thought that a long time ago, man. Even before I got my life together or anything. I mean, even after that first loss I took, you know, before I trained, whenever I got that rear naked choke. I mean, even after that fight, man. I mean, I still felt like I could make it if I ever got started training, just because of the success I'd had, you know, fighting out in the streets, and you know, the success I'd had in the cage. I mean, And I had an old friend. He knew a whole lot about fighting, man. A whole lot about the fight game. And he told me when we was kids. He said, we was sitting down one day, and he said, I've only told like one other person this or something like that. But he said, if you ever wanted to fight, Trevor, he said, you could make a whole lot of money at it. And I was like, yeah. And he said, yeah, man. He said, people will love the way you fight, man. He's like, they will love the way you fight. You could really make something of yourself if you ever wanted to fight. And I mean, we was kids when he told me that, man. I mean, not for a long time, for a good long while, I've thought in my heart, that I could make it if I could just beat myself, really.
Man, it's wild that, the rest of us are finally getting to see the end product of something that you've known for a long time, since you were a kid. This dream that you've had from way back when is just, it's finally coming to fruition. And the rest of us are just now starting to see it. But this is something you've had, in your heart, on your mind for a long time.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It's definitely something that I've had, it's stuck with me for a long time, man. A real long time. I mean, I've been thinking about fighting for, probably about 14 years now, man. Something like that. Didn't really know that I was going to pursue it till, my later teenage years. It was, or even my younger 20s, man. Like, I was just so lost in life, I didn't really know if I was ever going to get it together, but I always knew that I wanted to, try it if I could, beat the things that I had to overcome. But, once I started overcoming them things, I got to it pretty hard, man. And it's been a beautiful journey.
Well, your friend was right too. You do definitely have a style that people want to watch, and it is super exciting to watch. Like I said, past couple of days I've been watching some of your previous fights, and yeah, no, they're awesome. They're very exciting to watch. And I watched that fight. Right before we got on here, I watched you fight again with Karma Worthy. And I mean, at this time you're like, or after you beat him, you were 6-0 as a pro. Karma Worthy's UFC veteran. Very exciting fighter in his own right. You knocked him out in the first round. It was a title fight. In the AFS, and then you get the call for Dana White Contender Series. What does that feel like when you get that call?
That was scary. I mean, because I didn't expect it to come that quick, man. Because for the post fight interview for the Karma Worthy fight, I said, somebody tell Dana White I'm on my way, and then I walked out of the cage, man, and I wasn't even off the catwalk yet, and Steve come up to me and he was like, Sean Shelby just called. You've got a Contender Series call. You got a Contender Series shot in September. And, the main reason I was scared, man, is like, I'd just gotten over COVID. Just gotten over COVID whenever I fought Karma, and I had a serious lung infection or pneumonia or something still. I fought Karma with, I don't even know what percentage of my lungs was operating, man. Everything I did was miserable getting ready for that fight. I mean, I was in the hotel room. My lungs was killing me that day. It was just a miserable camp for me there at the end. So, and my legs was real banged up from the Karma fight. So between my lungs and legs, man, whenever he offered it to me, I was like, man, is it at the end of September? And he's like, I think so. And I was like, if it's at the end of September, that'll probably work out. And then the next day he calls me and he's like, hey man, how you feeling? And I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good, man. I'm, banged up. My lungs are hurting. He said, and then he starts going over everything, and he's like, I got to know something. And I'm like, well, when is it? And he said, it's September 13th. And I was like, man, can they not push it to the end of September? Just give me a couple more weeks for my lungs. And he said, I know them cards are filled up. He said, and he told me, he said, Sean said that, he could potentially get you on one of them like at the end if a fight fell off. But that wasn't guaranteed, and if a fight didn't fall off and he couldn't get me on, that I would have to wait till next year. But Sean also told Steve that he knew I had issues with my lungs and everything, that he wouldn't hold me against me. Whenever next year rolled around for the Contender Series, there wasn't going to be something that he kind of held over my head. But I told Steve, I said, man, I said, when do you got to know something? He said, I got to know something tomorrow by lunch. I said, let me get back to the gym. Let me see if my legs can, carry me through to train. See if I can try to keep my cardio up, what little bit I got. And I got back to the gym and put on some shin guards and everything, man, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to. I knew I couldn't kick real hard on the bag. And I got out there and did 3 5-minute rounds, and then we talked to my coaches and told Steve, let's run it. That I thought I could maybe get my lungs better. We was going to roll the dice and see if I could. And luckily, we got everything cleared up, man. So it was a little scary whenever they first offered it, just because of my health issues I had going on.
Oh yeah, I bet. And, when you learn it's such a quick turnaround. Only a month between the Worthy fight and then the Contender Series fight. When you're dealing with all that, man, that is a lot to deal with. It sounds like, but you took advantage of that opportunity, man. That much like a lot of your other fights, that fight was also just crazy. I mean, that onslaught from Malik Lewis there in the first round. He was hitting you with some crazy stuff, some knees, just a little bit of everything, and then you came back in that second round and you laid it on him. It was like the roles completely switched. You turned up that fire in that second round and got him out of there. What was going through your head in between those 2 rounds? What was some of the advice that your coaches were giving you? What were you thinking heading into that second round?
At the very end of the first, I landed a right knee and a left hook, and I knew it hurt him. I mean, he was like, he kind of made that noise, and then he kind of turned his head away from me, and I could see in the corner of his eye. I could see that. It's hard to describe, man. But if you've got that instinct in you, then you know what I'm talking about. Then everybody knows what I'm talking about. But like you can see when like quit starts to surface in an individual, and I seen it at the end of that first round. And then, in between rounds, I'm sitting there on the stool, and my coaches are talking to me, and I think I heard one of them's advice. He said something. He was like, "I need you to come back up to the head after you hit the 6th line," and that's pretty much all I heard from my coaches, man. I was so focused on studying him, figuring out his body composure, how he was acting. Because I knew for me mentally, I knew I needed to pay more attention to him than I needed to my coaches for some reason. I don't know why. I was just so focused on him, and the whole time in between that first and second round, I could just tell that he was real discouraged that he ain't got me out of there yet, and that some quit was hopefully surfacing. So I figured, if I put the gas on in the second round, that I could get the win, and I did. So it was It was wild though, man. Yeah, that first round was brutal. I mean, I hadn't been tested like that since 2018. They changed the rules in Alabama from a fight I had in 2007 and 18 when I was still an amateur, and I hadn't been pushed like that since that fight, man. So it was I learned, it was good. It was good for me. I got to learn a lot about myself from that fight, man.
Yeah, and you did get the win there after rallying back in that second round. It was it was a crazy thing to watch, and after you win that fight, did it set in that like, oh, I'm going to be in the UFC, like I just won on the Contender Series, like I'm going to the UFC,
It wouldn't, man. It really didn't set in as hard as I would have thought it would have, but I think some of that was due to outside circumstances I had going on in my personal life right after the fight. It kind of, I had to put my attention into a lot of other things and didn't really get to soak in the moment, But I'd say it really set in and really hit me hard whenever we was watching the post-fight show the week before I fought on this last card, and my name come across the screen. They originally had me on the main card, and then some fights fell off and they had to kind of balance everything back out, so they dropped me back down to prelims. So, but originally, I was on the main card, and I seen that go across the screen when me and my buddy was watching the post-fight show, and I lost my mind, man. I mean, I had to go outside and run down his driveway, and I was out there screaming as loud as I could, just jumping up and down, just being a maniac out there, man. And I come back in there and I was like, it's hitting, man. I was like, I'm in the UFC. Like, he's just laughing at me. He was like, it's hitting, ain't it? And I was like, dude, it's realer right now than it's been this whole time. And it sure was, man. It was a crazy feeling just sitting there watching my name. And I told him, I said, man, I wished I could like go fight, but like stay here and watch it with y'all too. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just, I enjoy that whole experience, man. It was, but yeah, it was surreal, man.
Oh man, I bet. I can't even imagine, man. Yeah, I just got a couple more things I want to touch on. Then we'll get you out of here before the hour mark, But I had a couple of things I wanted to touch on before we leave. I was listening to your podcast with Bruce, and he said something about kind of hooking you up with some folks and helping you out with selling some merch. And I was just kind of curious, when can we look forward to picking up some Trevor Peek T-shirts and gear? Because I'm definitely interested, and I imagine a lot of people after seeing your debut are interested too.
Yes, sir. Hopefully here soon. I just had a meeting with a Zoom meeting with my agent over it. It's going to be on millions.com, and I just had a meeting with her a couple days ago, and we got everything worked out, and hopefully get some designs shot over to her here soon, and maybe we can get that up and running here in the next week or two, I'd hope.
Oh, that's exciting, man. I can't wait. I'm definitely going to get me one, man. No question about it. I'm excited about the millions.com thing, man. I didn't know a whole lot about it. My buddy that trains with me, my main training partner here, Torres, he's signed up with them, and I'd asked him a little bit about it, but after I talked to that lady, it was the things they do is real cool, man. I mean, they connect all my social media platforms on to millions.com, and I can go on there and, host live watch parties for the events and, stuff like that. So it's more than just merchandise. It's a whole lot, and it's really neat, man. I'm super excited about getting that going. Oh man, I'm excited too, man. I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. And, I wanted to be sure to bring this up too, because I've heard you talk about it quite a bit, just in the interviews and things that you've done. But anyone who listens to you talk, is going to learn that faith obviously plays a very important role in your life. And hearing you talk about it is very inspiring. I grew up in a small country town, religious upbringing, everything like that, man. But when you talk about your faith and how it's led you here today, it really is something special, man. So, I'd love to hear you just talk a little bit more about, the role that God has played in your life and, how he's brought you to this moment.
I mean, everything, man. I mean, this, everything good that I have, he's played a role in. I mean, I've didn't really know him, didn't know if he was real or not. For a good long while, I figured he probably was, just because the family I had around me and a couple friends, I guess. But and my high school sweetheart, her family was real big Christians. So I didn't really know for sure until later on in life. But after I started having experiences with him and everything, man, he really saved me. I mean, I've been to jail more times than I can count on both my hands. I had a 5-year prison sentence over my head. I mean, dude, I've been through so much. Been to rehab twice. I mean, I've been in intensive outpatient programs, all kinds of stuff from 15 till, not too long ago, really. And I could never really overcome anything, man. I was always, I always kept going back to the things that always hurt me, and just really hated myself. And after I started experiencing God, and he started taking a lot of the hurt away from me, and I was initially started partying and just to have fun, but then it got into kind of more of I was using it to cope, and I didn't know that the things I was that I was coping for, I didn't know, like the alcohol and all that, I didn't know that it would just prolong the process of me getting over all that, you know what I mean? Like the things that I was trying to drown out, I just kept them drowned out enough to, resurface whenever I wasn't drunk, and I didn't actually get over them things until, after I, come to know God and let Jesus into my life and try to straighten up. And I was really shocked about all of it at how the things that just killed me, man. I mean, every day just killed me, how they started to slowly not hurt so bad, and how I started to, get through it without just being miserable. And it really, he's just been so good to me, man. I mean, there's been times I've let worldly things distract me, and I've chased after other things in life and kind of lost my way and, lost my direction in a sense. And he always sticks with me, man. He always pulls me out of the crap I get myself into, and I couldn't be more thankful for him. And it's crazy, man. I mean, I don't know many ways to describe it other than it being, wild at the life that, God can give someone. I mean, I went from being one of the most poorly looked at, members of my community, to, being one of the, highly looked at individuals in the community. I mean, I got, the same people that used to talk about, or not really, same people used to not really have any, expectations for me, or, cheering me on now and stuff, man. So, God's really, really blessed me, man. He's really blessed me.
Man, that's awesome. It's, you don't know how much your life can change, whenever you stray far away and you get a little lost and you're looking for a purpose, and, you're doing all these other things to try to deal with what you got going on. But, man, once you accept God into your life and into your heart, man, it's kind of indescribable to, you can't really describe how much your life can change and just how much you can turn things around. No matter how far deep you are into that hole, there is a way out, and you can't do it by yourself, no matter how much you want to, but, it is possible to get up out of that hole and really make a change. So it's awesome to hear you talk about it. And it's just great to see how far you've come from, the stories you tell and everything like that, man. So, just keep doing what you're doing and following that path, man. I have no doubt that, there's great things ahead for you. No doubt at all.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I believe it's going to be a fun ride, man. I really do. I think there's a lot of good things going to come of it.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, do you have a date in mind coming up for when you might want to fight next? Anything like that?
Man, I thought they was coming to Nashville in May. I found out today they're not. So.
Oh man, dang.
Yeah, man, I was so pumped up about it. I've been running around jumping, just excited for the last week. But unfortunately, they're not going back to Bridgestone yet. But it's looking like either May or June, I think. I'm not exactly sure. My manager's down in, I think he's in San Antonio right now. I think Steve's down there with.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think he's down there with Mick Maynard and them right now. So, hopefully by the end of this weekend, I'll have a good idea of when and where and an opponent. I hope so. We'll see, man. They're just whatever they give me,
Oh yeah, and next time they do go to Bridgestone, they need to get you on there. Obviously, if they didn't do that, that'd be a mistake right there. And two, once they do get you on that card, I'll definitely be in attendance watching. There's no doubt about that, man. I mean, that's got to happen in the future, I feel like.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I think, man, if they knew what it would do to put me on the card in Nashville, I think they'd try to get me on the card in Nashville pretty soon. I don't think they understand how big of a following I've got yet. So, I'm just going to keep working, keep building a name for myself and getting their respect. And then, hopefully one of these days, my ultimate dream, man, is to fight for, the world title at Bridgestone. So, maybe one of these days we'll be on this again and you'll be like, man, you remember that podcast when you said that? And I'll be like, yeah, man, I got them looking at the belt right now.
Yeah. Well, hey, don't get, no matter what happens, don't get too famous to come back on and, let me know how you're doing, man. It's been awesome to talk to you, man. I've been wanting to do this ever since I watched you fight, and it was just cool to sit here and talk to you and have you on the show. And just before we close out, I want to give you the opportunity to shout out anything or anyone you want to shout out, social media handles, anything like that.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on social media. Instagram's Trevor Peek MMA. Twitter is Trevor Peek _MMA. And then Facebook's just Trevor Peek. I want to thank all my coaches and teammates over here at Gogi Combatives, my manager, Steve Swedish. And then, also at the end of all this, I just want to tell everybody out there listening to, man, if you're out there and you're broken and you're lost and you don't really know which direction to go in life and you're tired of being miserable and tired of feeling broken and feeling empty, man, I strongly recommend trying to get a relationship with Jesus Christ, because you ain't got to go through this life alone. You ain't got to feel lonely and, feel broken and empty. And He's the only thing I know that can really give anybody any true joy and fulfillment and give you a purpose and identity. And I just praying for you guys and thank y'all for listening, and maybe y'all support me in my career. And I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for that message, and again, just thank you for coming on the show, man. It's been awesome. I really did enjoy it. It was great to talk to you, and can't wait to watch you fight next, man. I'm excited to see what comes for you.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, man. I appreciate you.
All right, you have a good one.
Hey, you too, brother.